Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, there.
This is our third and for this year the last talk at the library. And the title for this is Using Our Minds to Help Other People. And of course, before we begin, let us recite the mantra of the universe in its purity, Om Nam, 7 times. Chuck, please. Say that when we practice and we begin our practice, we usually begin for ourselves. We have a problem personally, individually, and we want to solve it. And many times when we reach a more clear state and our problems, stop to exist, in such a burning hot manner, when it doesn't strike us anymore so hard, then our practice energy gets a little lower. The name for that is, I'm fine, I'm okay, why practice so hard? And then the motivation has to change, and it changes only with another recognition. That is, my suffering is not only my suffering, it used to cause suffering to my family, to my friends, to other people, to this earth. And now that it's less, I feel other people's suffering. I feel that their problem are causing problem to me. Now, if you practice and you gain some insight, you no longer respond with dualistic emotions or dualistic thinking. You try to fix yourself. You try to attain the mind which is beyond this thinking, and then that will have a positive effect on your environment too. So after your personal problems are gone, and you see that the world still has a lot, then comes saving all beings. It's a very important point. You have to make the transition from practicing for your own need, which is well established, for the needs of others. You already understand by the experience of your own karma that you cannot fix other people's karma. You can fix only yours. And by practicing, you can inspire others, you can help others fixing theirs. So then your practice makes one more big step. Why is it so necessary? Because there are many, many clear-minded people on this planet, but not many people use their clear minds to help other beings. And I do not want to single out any groups or any professions or any kind of lifestyles, but you can see that a clear mind, which can make very good intellectual decisions or has a very broad emotional intelligence, does not necessarily help other people. Sometimes these kinds of minds just use other people for their own benefit, should that be financial, political, other ways. And this clarity is necessary for them to do all that. Okay? So then how do you use your clear mind? That's when our Bosal-do, the Bodhisattva path, becomes so important. At first, when we begin to practice, and we recite the 4 great vows. The 4th is, the Buddha way is inconceivable, we vow to attain it. That's the 4th. It seems to be the last, the most important and the strongest. But look at the 1st. Sentient beings are numberless, we vow to save them all. And I'm not sure how it vibes with you, but when I started practicing, it seemed to be a completely impossible thing to do. Something which sounded ritualistic, but it didn't sound real. So you look at yourself as an individual. How can you possibly save all beings? Only on this planet we have now 6.7 billion. So how do you do that? That is a direction. That is an attitude. That is an aspiration. That's the next step in your practice. And it becomes very, very important over time. And if you don't practice for yourself, then for whom? For what? And if you attain some clarity, then what do you do with it? When human beings learned to fly an aircraft, we did not have an ethical code attached to it. So we are using aircraft and aerospace technology for everything. Everything. For helping humans, also for killing humans. We use it in all possible respects and capacities. What do we do with our minds? What do we do with our clarity? If we are smart, how do we use that? If we are emotionally perceptive, how do we use that? If you are physically flexible or strong or physically capable, how do we use that? Do we use it just for our own sake or our small group's sake to appropriate or take as much as possible? Or we try to create some balance where everybody can find their way, everybody can find their livelihood? These are very, very big differences. And in our 4 great vows, the first sets this direction very clear. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. It's closely connected with the fourth. The Buddha way is inconceivable. We vow to attain it. Only by that can we do all this. But the two are connected. So, if a mind is very powerful, it has very, very big problems if it becomes egotistical. If an existence is financially, politically, or in any other way becomes very strong, then one mistake, one selfish move can affect millions and sometimes billions of people. So attaining clarity, which involves wisdom, compassion, and true strength, is not enough. This is why we talk about this on the third and last time. Remember, the first was beginning, how we enter the path. What are the motivations? The second, how we stay on the path. And the third, how we use our clear mind. And that is very clearly set forth in the Bodhisattva precepts, in the Bodhisattva vows. Because without this direction, many, many suffering, much, much suffering can appear if we don't make this clear for ourselves. I'm bringing an example which is not from the Korean tradition, but I assume most of you know this name, called Milarepa, right? He was a very, very strong practitioner, and when he was a young boy, they lost all their inheritance, and he decided to take revenge on the very selfish and usurping relatives. And he learned magic, and when he attained that capability, he destroyed the house of those relatives and conjured lightning to kill them. And whether this in fact happened or not is not important. What is important that this power is attainable. This power is usable. And how you use it is very important. So it's more than likely that it actually happened in this way, because later he entered the quote-unquote monkhood, which was very different from the monkhood here, because he went up to a cave and he practiced there for 27 years. And there he had to learn how to use magic power correctly. He had to learn how to use this very clear, very perceptive, very capable mind correctly. So in our lives this probably won't take such a big curve as with Milarepa, but I am enhancing the picture and apply the magnifier to show you the problem. The problem is that these capabilities, whether everyday or magical, they are neither good nor bad by themselves, but the way we use them is supremely important. And in fact, cause and effect show very clearly how we use them. It's undeniable. The result is there. Okay? As to Milarepa's story, when he was on his way to learn this magic, there was a lama spending the night at the family house. And that lama was also very, very perceptive. And in the morning, when he left, he said to Milarepa's mother, "Be careful, the consequences can be enormous." And so they were. So they were. It's not an accident that somebody goes up to the cave, takes just a little bit of instructions from his teacher, Marpa, and he eats nettles for 27 years and water, and that's it. And of course, in our Korean tradition, we find people who are practicing very hard, austere, clear practice, for different reasons, but the question is always the same. If your consciousness becomes higher quality, more enlightened, more powerful, how we use that. And the only way to fix it is your clear direction. So the compass on a ship might seem useless when it's broad daylight and you know where the sun rises and sets, and during the night you see the moon, the stars, especially the North Star, because you can set your direction by them. And why have a compass? But when everything's clouded, when there is a storm, and you have to find your direction, only the compass helps. Okay? That's why we have our vows. That's why we have our great direction to save all beings. Because if you do not want to repeat this suffering cycle, you have to have that direction. Either all of them are saved, or none, not even you. Okay? So much about introduction. We don't have to, dwell on the subject too much, but also we don't want to depart from the subject, at this point. And I would rather listen to your questions than give more explanations. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Bodhisattvas to save the beings. If the Bodhisattva wanted to save the beings, there are lots of beings in this world. So I think it is a different way to save the different beings. But sometimes for the venerables, it is very hard to practice the very different way to save the pigs. For example, the beautiful lady drowned in the river. Then don't touch the woman, but in order to save the woman, the lady, then touch the woman, or to save the dying lady in the snow. Then some venerables, in order to save her, to wear his drops, then I think the woman save them. But sometimes the laymen, they criticize the venerables practice. But I think there are various kinds of things, so the practice to save them are the various ways.
What is your question?
Venerables, in order to save the beings, to practice even the evil deed, is it possible?
Well, I'm not sure what evil deed you are thinking about, but if we bring everything back to your example, like the woman who is drowning in the water, or the woman who is freezing in the snow, if the Venerable touches the woman, that's a mistake. But if the Venerable does not help the person who is drowning, that's also a mistake. So the Venerables, whoever they are, should only help the drowning being, but not touch the woman. Do you understand that? That's the point. With the snow, is the same thing. And with just a little bit of correct compass in your mind, you know what to do. Whether lay or venerable, doesn't matter. Suppose that that layman is married. Oh, that's a conflict. How will you explain that to your wife? Especially if the wife is sitting right next to you. Very hard. More questions?
Previous lecture, first question is, you mentioned last lecture that your karma is being digested in your dream. So tell us more about it. So first question.
Okay. So if you don't practice enough, then you have to dream, because your karma is digested in your dream. You have to reflect something which was influencing you very strongly, whether positive or negative, something from the past or maybe even from the future. If you stay clearly in the moment, in your wakeful time, then while you are awake you can process all that. So you don't have to have some extra time in your dream or sleeping time to have these images in your consciousness. So dreaming many times is just a message from your mind that that's your homework. Enter. So these digestion processes, they are not special. At first, when we start to practice, it's kind of interesting. What's going on inside? When we first begin to see that. Now that's an interesting experience. And in Theravada, there is a concept for it. The stream enterer. It's a little deeper than just beginning to see what's inside, but basically when you see the mind process as it flows, that's a mind stream. And the stream enterer is the first of the 4 levels. Okay? But this stream doesn't appear during meditation only, it appears also in sleeping time in the form of dreams if your practice is not enough. Now, what is most important is that you keep the same kind of clear, reflective consciousness, whether you are awake or you are asleep. So if you practice really sincerely and with the right technique and the right direction, the right teaching, then when you have a big internal conflict during your wakeful time, your mantra, your yombul, kicks in to neutralize it. You have to. Otherwise there can be a shock, your mind can break. Suppose there's a big accident and 5 people die right before your eyes. Instead of getting totally paralyzed with fear, your constant bosa kicks in and you make the call right away. Same thing in dream. If your practice works out fine, some dream appears, in your dream the mantra kicks in and it starts to stabilize your consciousness, if necessary. If not necessary, enjoy the show. No big deal. Okay? Nobody, when you go to a movie theater and you watch your favorite movie, nobody keeps a mantra during that because you want to enjoy the show. So, when necessary, your practice mind, one mind, clear mind, it all becomes stronger than the karma, whether during a wakeful time or during a sleeping time. And then dreams are not special. This is a dream also right here. In other words, it's just some phenomena in your consciousness. But it's kind of more interesting when we have sleep time and still something happens. Our body doesn't do anything, and most of the time we don't talk during our sleep, but still something happens in our consciousness. How? And all of you who have been listening to the teaching from previous years, you already understand the storehouse consciousness, the discriminative consciousness, the processing consciousness, what we call levels 6, 7, and 8. So the interplay of all this is the dream if all the others and your awareness are knocked out. So basically it's the interplay of your storehouse consciousness most of the time, because you don't touch it with your conscious intellect, because you are sleeping. Your conscious intellect is number 6. Number 7 is the discriminative consciousness, making good and bad. If you wake up sweating, that means the discriminative consciousness labeled the dream as bad. If the 7th doesn't kick in, doesn't start to function, you only see images. Or sometimes you may hear sounds, but if you have audible dream, then you wake up. Usually it's visual, most of the time. And it's not true that it's only black and white. I remember color. So dream is not special. It handles, or you should handle it in the same way as you handle any other mental phenomena. And if you do your chanting practice regularly, then your mantra switches on, if necessary. Okay. Yeah?
Second question is, sometimes, not sometimes, almost always, there are many different tendencies in you, attitudes. Sometimes I call it, like the people I call it I.
Mm-hmm.
There are sometimes this attitude I want to identify myself with. Sometimes I'll do anything not to identify myself with. But there always, not always, but most of the time, lots of conflicts going on. And there are almost numberless, they're almost limitless. Make them reconcile seems to be such a big work that I don't know when I may begin to really think about saving all beings. Would it ever end?
How did it begin? Did it begin? Ever? The Buddha teaches us that we have numberless previous incarnations and we will have numberless future incarnations unless you attain the mind which is beyond life and death. Conflicts are the same. This mind stream which I mentioned, it's been having numberless bodies, lives and deaths, and it will have. So it has no beginning and no end by itself. We ourselves consciously can spark a conflict and end the conflict. And to end it, you should see how you began that. It's not going back in time. It's not some regression, okay? Right now, this moment, we have the full power of beginning and ending it. That's what I mean. Moment to moment, we maintain these mind states full of conflicts and etc., etc. How do we do that? So this moment is the key to beginning and ending, right now. Our Chamson Bulgyo, so Korean Son, has a very important practice called Tanjon practice. And this Tanjon practice is the kind of life insurance that you do not put too much energy into your thinking, speech, or feelings. So when you do Tanjon breathing and Tanjon practice, you do it in the smart way. Why? You simply take the energy out. So you can see people arguing in a room, and you try to make peace between them, but they would never shut up. In fact, they are shouting louder, and as you enter the room, they shout at you even more. So it sounds brutal, and never do it in real life, but in the metaphor, if you really want to shut them up, cut the power. No electricity, no air. Soon they fall asleep, then of course they are saved. But they would be arguing for the rest of their natural lives if you give them enough energy, same as your thinking. So if you take the energy out of your thinking and return to your Tanjon, it becomes very tame. In other words, it will not be troubling you, because you took the energy out. Then you can see, it's a moment of liberation when you see, oh, my thinking doesn't exist by itself. It's energized. So if you remove the energy, it becomes very weak or completely disappears. That's why people do fasting during retreats. If you pump up your body with energy, your thinking is also stronger. Emotions also. And if you fast, then this reduced physical energy also reduces the energy in the relevant parts of the body. And if you direct that to your Tanjon, you can become really clear. Really clear. So there is no cognitive solution. There is no secret book of conflicts. Okay, that's very good. Otherwise, it would be very expensive. But there is a way to take the energy out and then seeing it clearly how you begin them and how you end them. And then you have power over it. Okay? It's not okay. But if you practice, it will be okay. More questions?
Clear. when the clear consciousness shows the correct directions.
You may mean conscience. Conscience is what you have inside as your self-knowledge. Clear conscience.
Consciousness.
Okay, consciousness. We can work with that too.
Or consciousness is become more clear and it shows the correct direction.
Mostly yes.
Mostly yes.
Because you gave me an abstraction, I cannot say 100% yes. If you give me a concrete, clear example, that's something we can work with 100%. But you know what is Buddhist theory? Fluff in the air. So, give me something concrete and clear. What kind of consciousness, what kind of direction?
It is my direction.
There you go!
Yeah.
Your direction is shown very clearly in your situation, relationship and function. Okay? So if your direction is clear, then you enter the situations where you want to be and you have to be at the same time. Then relationships are formed correctly and the functions are done also correctly. That means clear direction. But if you enter situations where you don't want to be, or you enter but the relationship is not clear, like others always suffer and you don't, it just doesn't dawn on you. Or you make others suffer and you don't even see it. Then also function becomes very, very unclear or ruinous or devastating in the long run. So how do you check your direction? Don't check yourself, don't explain to yourself, don't define it for yourself. Nothing here. Perceive. See clearly what kind of situation you got, what kind of relationship, what kind of function. And if that is the result that you want, and at the same time it helps other beings too, together, then you're probably doing the right thing. And you're going the right way. But if it helps only you and no one else, you have a problem. And if it helps everybody else but not you, also have a problem. Okay? Something is out of balance. More questions? 1, 2. Shh. Go for it. Young man, the first row.
I heard several times from your talk that similar things are repelled to each other and the opposite things attract each other. How can I know, how can I experience and confirm that I'm sure about the fact?
Use a magnet. In fact, use 2 magnets. And if you turn them with plus and minus together, they attract each other right away. Plus and plus or minus and minus, ding, ding, you just can't touch. Now, if you have that physical experience, it gives you some certainty, some foundation, that at least nature works like this. Then you look inside and you find some emotions, you find some relationships, and then you see how your emotions and relationships work together. I cannot give you any further hints, I would spoil the fun. But it's really interesting. In what way do you differ from your friends, and in what way are you similar? Because what keeps people on orbit around each other is the balance between similarities and differences. If they were all similar, they would just be away from each other because nothing is interesting, nothing is attractive. And they have enough differences, then they are really attracted to each other in a positive way, that is constructive, or negative way, anger. But both are attraction. Like desire and fear, also desire and anger, they are both attracting forces, but the meeting is different. One is the desire type, the attraction type. It makes more. Look at marriage. It makes more human beings. And the anger type, look at war, differences, also attraction, but it reduces human beings because it's an anger type of ruinous or devastating union or meeting. So these attractive forces, they can meet and produce various results, productive or destructive. But if they are too similar, they don't meet, they don't talk, because at a human level, it's not interesting. Too much difference, too many differences, they fall into each other, and they either become or okay. And if there's a balance, then it's really like two planets, or a planet and the sun orbiting around. And that's like a good friendship, a good marriage, a good community, a good type of relationship. And that's what we call the middle way in relationships. And what's reassuring, that if you look at your own emotions and your own human relationships, you'll see that the law of attraction and repulsion, the law of desire and anger, the law of dualities, they operate exactly in the same way in the material realm, the human realm, and therefore maybe the superhuman realm also. And that tells us something, that there is no two dharma, there's only one dharma. So the law of cause and effect is very clear, and it works exactly in the same way in physics, psychology, science, religion, philosophy, thinking, emotions, physics, everywhere, everywhere. The law is the same. And that's a wonderful thing. We can explore it. We can find some unity, some integrity in it. And we can rely on it. We call that refuge. At the very beginning, all of you chanted the three refuge. And refuge in the Buddha, refuge in the Dharma, refuge in the Sangha. What you talk about, and my answer here, is the refuge in the Dharma, the refuge in the law, the trust in the integrity of the universe, that it works exactly in the same way in all of us, although we have different karma, but the function of this karma, the way it works, is exactly the same. So, no mystery here. Look inside, you find everything. Okay?
I wonder about I easily understand about two people or one group, but I hardly understand the group of people. All of them are different to each other and they extract together.
You easily understand two people? You're lucky. Does your girlfriend say the same thing about you? Actually, with a group, you can observe better because there's more people. So, look, in this room, we are very lucky because we have many kinds of karma here. We have Asian karma, and within the Asian, we have some Chinese, some more Korean, some little bit Mongolian also elsewhere. And from the West, we have definitely many kinds of Western faces here. But all of us are humans. We were born into a human body. That makes us brothers and sisters because we share the same fate. We were born, we grow up, we get old, we die. Roughly, we can tell what makes us happy within broad outlines. We can also pretty much predict what makes us upset or sad with big general terms. So these are big similarities. Being born in the same realm is actually big similarity. Then the difference is, if you look at each other's face, it's all there. Some brown eyes, some blue eyes, some gray eyes. Some people like kimbap, some people like pasta. These are small differences. But what really brings us together is, like I said, the combination of all this. Okay. So, if you have Asian karma, then you are reborn in Asia. If you have European or American karma, then you are reborn in the West, in some other country. But again, there is the law of birth and death if you have strong previous karma with some people and you haven't finished it, you are reborn to them. It's not good, not bad. It's just still has fire. It's not opposites. It's not, you know, similarities or not. I'm sorry, it's dualities, but not similarities or differences. But with your parents, you haven't finished your karma. So that's why you are reborn to them and not next door, not to someone else. So the biggest attraction when you're born is definitely between your parents and you. Because you can only be born to the place and time and people where you have the strongest attraction. Whether it's positive or negative, we don't have to discuss now. Some people like the way they live, and they like the place where they were born, and time. Some people just feel completely out of place, and this is really not my life. Well, even if you feel that it's not your life, you have it, because you made it. Okay? And you can see very clearly elements of group culture which brings people together, but also the individuals that are so different. So the similarities and the differences, they give you a balance, and that balance brings you your karma. That kind of combination. And with another person, it's much less predictable. I mean, if you look at Korea, 50 million people, you pretty much know what the country will wake up to tomorrow morning. It's very hard for 50 million people to change. If you look at Seoul, 14 million, also very predictable what Seoul will look like tomorrow. But what kind of speech you get from your girlfriend tomorrow, you don't know that. So the smaller the group, the less predictable it is. And the least predictable is an individual. Okay? Look at that. And cherish your relationships. More question. Next question was, I'm sorry, we had a line, and we respect that line. Go for it. Who is Jung?
Having energy is too big to practice, and you know, but I was told you from sleep last weekend there is vegetarian, usual vegetarians is lighter than eat a meal, but there are two kinds of great Buddha teaching. Went to the northern area, we call the northern transmission, and another one is southern transmission. Each country has each custom and different lifetimes, and there are so many countries and so many peoples. But the plant and animals also have same Buddha's nature. Killing the animals, if we kill the animal at the time, the big karma, we must have big karma, depressed and big karma. But to kill the animal and to cut the plant, it's the same thing, in my opinion. Because animals and the plant also have the same nature. How can we explain the different Buddha's nature?
Thank you. So, Wejangnim said that he believes that the animals and the plants have the same, nature. In fact, it's the same nature as humans. It is true as far as our substance is concerned, but our bodies are different. So human body is human body, human consciousness also human consciousness, animal body, relevant to animal consciousness, and plant body is different from animal body, therefore has different consciousness too. If they had the same kind of consciousness, they would be reborn in same kind of body. So, by default, our minds, our individual consciousness cannot be the same. Otherwise, we would be reborn at the same time, at the same place, into the same kind of body, which is impossible. So therefore, if you see a different kind of body, that gives you a different kind of mind, a different kind of consciousness. Okay? And if you look at plant life, they behave with their bodies also very differently than the animals and the humans. And if you see the structure of consciousness, who is the most aware, less aware, least aware? Who has the most thinking, less thinking, or no thinking? Most emotions, less emotions, no emotions, or almost no emotions. Definitely on top of it is humans. In the visible realm only, I'm just talking about what we see. Humans, animals, plants. In this hierarchy, the plants are below animals. And the rule of thumb is that you shouldn't kill and you shouldn't take life, is the same thing. But just by breathing, we take the lives of those microbes, those bacteria that are burnt in our lungs. So the rule is that we kill as low-level consciousness as possible. Therefore, if we eat kind of like vegetarian food, we do not harm this consciousness so much as by killing animals. Because the animal has a higher developed consciousness with more thinking, more emotions, more anger and more desire. Therefore, the dualistic karma is stronger if you kill an animal than, using plants. I wouldn't say killing plants, because you don't kill the plant by like pulling up a carrot and you eat it. You can still sow the seed and the carrot grows again. You may argue that with the animals is the same thing with the cubs and the puppies, but everything, but you see the difference. If you kill an animal, the animal doesn't really want to die and it's fighting and all this. Even the hamul is kind of fighting a little bit, the seafood, before you scoop it up. So, as low-level consciousness as possible. And plants are lower level than animals, so it's preferable to do that. But like I said earlier, in the Buddha's time, he accepted meat when it was not killed for him or for his bhikkhus. It was part of the custom, and the Theravada tradition largely follows that. There are Theravada regions where they try to be vegetarian, but if meat is offered, they accept it. And also in Mahayana, like in Tibet, they have no other source of protein because of the climate, and so they receive that offer. Where we can, we should really not make the karma of killing a high-level consciousness. We should be satisfied if our bodies permit with a lower level consciousness. And if you keep a balanced diet, then you can eat the kind of plant life and take the product of the animal like dairy, and that can be satisfactory for mostly everyone. Not for everyone, but mostly everyone. We had another question here in the line. Yes?
Sandeep, it's an honor to be here today.
Thanks
my
for
first
coming.
time to come to a teaching and stuff. My question is based on maybe a negative experience for myself and some others. I'm wondering, how should we react to someone that says something negative about us based on a stereotype that's been created over time?
Like your nose is big or something like that.
Is it big? Really?
You made the first mistake, young man. You believed me.
But anyways, based on race or what your job is or what you do, I'm just wondering how we should react when we hear that.
So, look, what kind of reaction would you like to give to that person?
Well, at first, when I didn't really know about it and I just hear about it, I think, oh well, some people it happens. But 7 or 8 years later, it starts to become a bit annoying. You feel like you want to be angry about it.
You could be, right?
Yes, you could be, but
why wait 7 or 8 years?
Well, you don't want to get in trouble or anything.
And after 7 or 8 years, you do?
No. What happens is your mind becomes very negative, and you feel more hate. But you want to stop that. You want to get rid of it. I'm just wondering, basically, how can you react to that?
Well, if I want to be high-tech in this answer, I can say keep up your firewall. So that's not the kind of dualistic relationship which is in the computing business. but keep a distance. That's number one. And it's a very healthy advice, because sometimes these opinions are strong and you have to live with those people who are putting this opinion into the mainstream or in the public sphere. And choose the reaction that you want to give. So if you want to react with compassion and equanimity and balance, and your mind can actually do it, then you react like that. But don't act out of fear and anger, because it perpetuates that karma and actually gives another reason for the other person to look down on you or discriminate you. So sometimes there are these big dramas and the couple gets a little bit upset and they fight in the kitchen a little bit over some really unimportant detail. And when it really becomes bitter, and one of them it just clicks for them. Oh, it's too much. It really shouldn't be like that. And after a very angry sentence from one, the other says, "I love you too. Bye-bye." So, this is a really important point, because the kind of reaction you give will be the next step or stepping stone for the other. So I'm not moralizing here. It's not like someone throws a stone at you, throw back with bread. It's not as easy as that. In our teaching we say, if your mind is clear, see your correct situation, relationship and function. And this is about relationship. And you should also see the situation. Sometimes we are in minority. I'm a minority wherever I go, because there's always more lay people than monks and nuns. That's no problem. If the relationship is clear, it's beautiful, it works out really fine. Wherever I go, I have to see my own situation, and that implies the relationship. And for those who have majority, it's a very big responsibility to use that majority. How? What does it really mean that we are the majority in a given room, or a given city, or a given country? Europe has a long history of misusing majority. That's why there have been so many revolutions and wars and famine and suffering and all that. Asia was not free from that either. Somehow it wasn't so much burning in the last 100 years compared to Europe. Okay? Getting back to the personal details. You have to keep your center strong. That means your mind shouldn't move. Really perceive what the other person is saying to you, and do not believe that. It's the creation of their own discriminative consciousness. And if possible, react in such a way which moves the other person's mind to the right direction. That's what I wanted to illustrate with the couple's dramatic conversation. It's up to you. There is a concept of higher ground. Like in Asia, there's the host and guest relationship. If you control the conversation, you are the host. If you're trying to attack, but it's repelled all the time, you are the guest. So your most important job in these situations, take host position. If they talk to you, you are the host. If you talk to them first, you are the guest. So then keep host position. And out of that, you can give very good teaching to those people. Don't attach to their words. See where their mind goes. Find some neutral ground or common ground. And try to take the energy out of this discriminative thinking. If you react to the thoughts, if you are attached to the words, you give more energy to that. And there's no solution, like in your question. There's no solution for the conflict which gets more and more and more energy. Okay? So take the energy out, refocus your attention, and when you found that ground or found that common sphere where your energies can combine better, then you will see that it is possible. And the sentence goes like this. Well, we have had our differences, but let's see what we can do. But if you have no common interest and no constraints to stay together, it's healthy to keep a distance. You don't have to be a Braveheart and the hero to fix that person's consciousness. If you cannot, don't do it. If you can, with full confidence, do that. And then it works. But if you don't believe that you can do that, you will never be in host position. You'll always try, and it will never work. Did this answer your question?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Next.
Is it okay to ask another question related to...
Wait a second, let me think about it. Yes.
Sometimes, like when you are taking, I guess, when something like this happening within your mind, you have to take the host position. It seems there's no choice, because this fighting parties are there, and this has very strong energy. But sometimes, I mean, it helps to see that fighting happens because you prefer one party over the other. I want this party to be me. It should be me over the other, and I shouldn't be the other party. And just seeing clearly sometimes helps to take the energy out, but from there where to go. And I heard that I was told many times that direction should be compassion and digital mind, but how do you apply that to the attitude that you don't want? Like, for instance, you're practicing, and part of me wanted to wake up at 5:30 a.m. and do the bowing, do the chanting. There is another party that, like, I'm tired, I want to sleep over and sleep in. And, how do you
Well, set up a hierarchy. What is more important? Waking up on time, do the practice, or sleeping in? Sometimes it's important to sleep, otherwise you could just crash your car on the highway. So, what keeps you more awake? Maybe half an hour more sleep, and then some practice, not the full practice, some practice, find a balance. If you just sleep, you wake up and you're completely noxious with your dreams. If you sleep 3 hours and you do 3 hours of practicing, you may be tired after that, just knocks you off for the rest of the day. So, what is more important? Do that, but in balance with the one which was put behind. It's like teamwork outside. Inside you have to find the middle way for yourself, but outside, of course, within a society, it's teamwork. And the most important part of teamwork is no one is left behind. So none of your thoughts are good or bad. Only when you are kind of this monastic champion and say, I must wake up every day at 3 a.m. Well, let me tell you, most of the Jiu-Jitsu teams don't wake up at 3 a.m. The Saudis do. So, find the balance. Find the balance. Which one gives you a more clear, more centered, more compassionate and wise and strong mind for that day? Find that.
When I see the beggars or some sick animals on the street, I feel so sad in my mind. So I try to help them by giving the money or food. Sometimes it makes some problem because I don't have money to come back. Because I have to limit. So after I start Shantideva's dedication prayer, I start to pray for them to escape from their karma. But still, when I face them, I feel like they need something more practical to be able to. So today's lesson is about using our mind to help others. So how can I help them by practicing?
Okay, so those animals, for instance, or poor and sick people who meet you, you should see all of them as a wonderful chance to practice compassion, kindness, and help. But if you yourself become that sick person, dead person, impoverished person, then you reduce your capability to help more. Why we keep ourselves in good shape, whether physically, financially, or anyway, most of all mentally, so that we could help other beings. That's our practice. So if you choose to walk home and not take the bus, then give your last money to a beggar. But if you miss the family meeting over which your job is decided for the next year, you may lose a lot more than just chonon, which you gave to the beggar and you didn't board the bus. So helping all beings is great, and it has to be done. But you should have very clear priorities and also very clear and practical outlook for the future. And if you do that, then you see that you equally help yourself and the family where you live and society where you live, including the beggars. So if you keep this equanimity, then nobody feels harmed. Because, for instance, you're supposed to be home by 6 p.m., but you give your last coins away, and you have to walk to Gyeongbokgung and cannot take the bus. You're 30 minutes late. Then your family says, "Here was dinner for you. We were supposed to eat together. What happened?" And you said, "Oh, I gave my last chonon to this little beggar," and she said, "What?" Things like that. Okay. So, most people who are in the position to give, they don't even have to touch this problem. They could give with free conscience, with free mind, without any kind of worries for the future, because they would never reach this kind of biting into your own livelihood. Okay? You don't have to bite into your own livelihood. Most people in Asia, especially in the three big economies of Asia, they don't have to worry about this. So it's very important for you to see how much you can give so that your own function is not disrupted. And go to that level if you want. That means you never have extra money, but you always have extra merit, because you make that merit. It's like giving to somebody completely freely, unconditionally. It's not lost. Most people think it's lost money. No, it's not lost. You invest it into the universe and it will come back to you. It's clear. Not someone gives it back to you, the universe itself. That energy is not lost. Okay? But you shouldn't do it at the cost of your own basic function in life. Alright? More questions? One there, or you were just scratching your head?
Yeah.
I got you.
But I have...
Since you scratch your head so visibly, now you ask a question.
It's about sharing. Sharing. Yeah. What do I need for sharing?
What do you need for sharing?
Yeah.
Kimbap. I love kimbap. So if you share kimbap with me, I'm very happy.
What I have, I can share what I have. But I ask how do I share?
How do you share?
Yeah.
What have you got? You can share that with those who need it. And that's why your question is very good. Share what you've got with those who are in need. Many people want many things, but they want it, and mostly they want it for themselves. So if somebody needs things, or they ask for something which is not for themselves, then it's a much more clear motivation. Okay? Sometimes in Hungary, and these days before Soul Station also, people come to, "Oh, I'm hungry, please give me, oh, chonon, chonon, anything, just anything, just give me, give, please give." And I said, "You're hungry? I'm gonna buy you a sandwich in the nearby store." Just look at me like that and they walk away. And if you give, like, for instance, you have some extra cash, and one of the other kind of stories is I said, I really have to go home, but I would miss the bus if I don't buy this ticket, and I have not enough money for a ticket. Now sometimes it happens to people, sometimes not. And I was walking in the city near Wonkwangsa, about 20 minutes from the temple, and the guy came up, was definitely half drunk. It was clear. I mean, he had some wine or something, and it was 10 a.m. And he says he has to go to Budapest, and he's like €2 worth. It's like some Chernobyl, short of the bus ticket. And I said, okay, I'm gonna give you €2. Use it well. And I was absolutely sure. And the next thing I would see that the guy walks into a shop, buys some drink, and drinks it. I had some more business in town, and I approached the park near the river Danube, and lo and behold, the guy was sitting there, but not drinking, eating. And that was much better. And it's way past 10 a.m. And I woke up to him, and I said, I'm glad you're all right. Do you need more money for food? I usually don't do that. I'm not a Samaritan, you know. But I like the kind of fact that, yeah, he said he needed it for the ticket. That's okay. But he bought some food and said, do you need some more money for food? He says, no thanks, I'm all right. I'm just going to sit around a little bit, then go. Who knows where he went. But at least he could see some reflection. He could see some consequence, which was not kind of accusing him anything, because I don't know anything about his situation. He may have been also hungry, besides missing the bus. Who knows? So why would I judge that guy? Why would I cast the dice? I don't even know him. But it was good to know him after like 2 hours more, and then go up to him in a very, very friendly way. Okay? So that's really important when you share. That you shouldn't be taken for a fool. Nobody's fool, okay? And when you give, you give with the full consciousness that what you give can be used in any way, in any possible way. Only with very sincere people, with very kind of long-term committed people, you know, then you can give, and you know them, you know who they are, you know what they stand for, and then you can make sure that your help, your donation, whatever you do for them is going in the right direction. So sharing also takes a lot of wisdom, not just compassion. Okay?
I just understood. Thank you.
You did. That's
Yes.
wonderful. So please tell me. I'm kind of interested what you understood. No problem. Any other questions? Over there. I'm sorry, Wejangin. She's.
Yeah.
I hope you understand my English. I'm very bad memory. And still in the hospital, too much text medicine. But I want to know question, Ice Prison. Ice Prison.
Yeah.
He talking about the vegetable plant to animal. What is different? But usually many people say, these days I try not to eat meat, fish, try not, but other people say, oh, vegetable or plant, they have also same. And I say, I think plant, there is no noble, 신경. Rabbit, but bean animal. They have rabbit, yeah, that's why I feel pain.
I didn't understand this key word. The key word.
Yeah,
what
key
plants
word.
don't have, but animals have. What is that?
What is many people understand? Most Buddhism doesn't eat the animal. I mean the meat.
I understood the question. Just not this one
Yeah.
word.
No.
Nerve.
No,
Thank you.
yeah,
Nerve.
that's why I know.
Nerves.
We eating and we feel pain. Yeah, but
Bosan, I have to kind of modify what you said based on my fragmented knowledge on biology. Plants have a nervous system.
yeah, nervous. Why?
But what they don't have is an individual consciousness. So the plant life,
Yes,
like
they
whole
don't have.
carrots, all carrots have this carrot energy, but they don't have carrot consciousness. Okay? So if you pull out the carrot, it's not killing. If you exterminate all carrots, then you wiped out that particular plant frequency or plant energy from the earth. And that would be a big mistake. But animals have individual consciousness, also group consciousness, like species. But a carrot doesn't behave differently from another carrot. But an animal, a lion, really behaves differently from another lion. They have individual characteristics. And they're, like I said, the amount of thinking and emotion, it's a lot more in animal life. That's why they have individual karma and they have mind in that sense. Nature or plants have energy, they have nervous system, but they don't have a mind on their own. And that makes a big difference. Because although our substance is the same, plant life is not classified as a sentient being. It's a biological, natural concept, plant life. But they don't have a mind, a consciousness on their own. So it's not a sentient being. It doesn't have an existence on its own. Animals and humans, they are sentient beings because you have a body, a distinct body, and you have a distinct mind. You put the two together, you have a sentient being. Humans are aware of this, animals are not aware of this. But in the individual sense, in the way humans and animals have mind, the plants don't have that. Okay? We should see that very clearly.
Yeah, we should know this way we must tell another. Logos is plants doesn't have logos.
It has a nervous system, but it operates differently. I have to emphasize. Plants are really important. They have nervous system like trees, but it's not the same data because it's not the same mind. But the fibers, they have nerves. Not in the same synaptic connections as we have in our brains, but they have nerves. I mean, how would they know what would transmit the signal for the leaves to get dry, brown, and fall? It all has a system. Okay? And there are kind of information channels within the plant. You know, there are plants that eat meat-eating plants. So, yeah, of course, but there are some. So, that poor fly or little insect or whatever goes in, what is it that tells the plant, eat it? It's a nervous system. It works like that. So it's a wonderful world, but it doesn't have the same consciousness, the same kind of mind as animal realm and human realm. It's a lower level of consciousness without the individuality. I think this is clear enough. Next question.
Now we are talking about the donation sharing karma, and we'd like to know about your work. Belarus devoting yourself to found the Wongang Temple, Wongangsar in Hungary. So please let us know about the importance of your work.
Actually, the way it works is pretty much the same as the previous answer, because what we should see that the work of the Dharma can take many, many forms and many, many ways. And if you see your own situation, for instance, in Central Europe, we see that there are no big practicing places, but there are a lot of people who would like to practice. So what's the natural response? Create one. And once we create one, we should have the first step to the direction which we want others to follow. So what did I do when we started the project? I sold part of my family heritage, weekend house on the other side of the Danube, and put quite a lot of it, actually the whole amount, but quite a lot of the amount that we needed, into buying land. And that was the start. If I don't do this, how can I expect anyone else to do it? So then the other thing, which was really important, that we show our sincerity by endurance. Because no one will believe you in the first moment. No one. when serious donors appear, they say, how long have you been doing this? 1 year. Okay, come back next year. And what was really frustrating, that most of these people, very, very high potential people, they said, wait. What do I want to wait for? Turns out that I don't have to wait, they have to wait. They have to wait for us to prove that we can still exist a year later. We do the same thing a year later. We didn't run away with anything that was given to us, and we didn't turn the temple into a hotel. So once that has been proven, and in the last 5 years it was proven many times, then some generosity truly appeared. So my job is really to keep the original direction very clear, so that we practice, work, and use the donation that has been given to us in the most appropriate manner and in the most sincere way. And that's what we call integrity. So the universe, as well as human beings who are interested in supporting our work, they check your integrity. Do you say the same thing as you said 3, 5, 6 years ago? Do you do the same thing as you have been doing in the last 3, 5, 6 years? And if you do that, then more support appears. So my job is really not that special, and it's not that different from any Sunim's job, but in the area where I was born, we have a lack of these facilities, especially temples where monks and nuns can train and live, as well as we invite lay people to train and live in a different part of the temple, but we practice in the same Dharma. So how it's done? I just knew when I returned to Europe following the teaching of Zen Master Susan and his direct instructions, that living too long in a city apartment is not something I would want. It's not really monk style. So what's next? I have a job in Central Europe, and it's indicated by the fact that I was born there. And what kind of job that is, it really wasn't clear until I turned 28. And at age 28, it kind of dawned on me what I want to do. And I didn't care when I would return, or if ever I would return. But once I returned, it was clear that my job is to teach, especially because I returned as a monk. I returned with the authorization to teach from Kunsanim, so that was clearly my job. So how do we find the right situation and the right relationship for that function? Well, we create that situation. And after 3 years of living in the old place, then we started to look for land in 2003. And 2004, after 1 year, we found it. It was an amazing process. 3 donations appeared. All those donations or donated lands were not in a good position, so we had to resign from that. And as the 3rd one just blew out and extinguished, as I was coming out of that direction, of that area, we found the current piece of land. Please look at it. You will find it very interesting. It's a very wonderful place. And then after the land came the land purchase, land acquisition, and then the construction. And next year we will have the first Zen room opening ceremony in April, in 2010. So everybody is cordially welcome to come. And one thing is clear, we do not build this temple just for a small group of people. We build it for everyone. We don't build it for the next 10, 20 years. We build it for many, many, many generations to come. That's our aspiration, and it's a kind of feedback to you when you have to repel others' opinions, when you have to deal with projections, that we never changed our direction, we never changed the original purpose, we never changed and will never change the function of this place. So when people see this, that we are determined enough, we go through thick and thin, we take this very seriously, then they take us also seriously, and that takes time. And once that's cleared, once the little seed from the ground begins to flourish, then the groundbreaking has been done. The most difficult part is what you don't see. When you see already some building, oh, that's the easy part. Before that is difficult. When you open the first building, you just see that the rest is to go, but the first one was the most difficult. And I never questioned the validity of this decision. In fact, it appeared in my mind in the same way as it appeared to become monk, out of nowhere. In retrospect, I can say, of course, it was valid because we don't want to live as monks, you know, with Wandosunim in an apartment, you know, too long. So it was very clear. And for everybody, it has to be clear whether it's the right challenge for you. It's a big challenge. We know that. Some people ask, you know, what if you try and it doesn't work? And then I said with the same smile, then we die trying. That's what it means. So don't question your own integrity once you have seen that the decision was good. It was a correct decision. So go through thick and thin, past the difficulties so that you could make it happen, without the drama, without the big show. So then people will believe in what you're doing, and we have earned quite good reviews in the last 2 years because we did not flinch. We did not retreat in the face of difficulties. Legal, financial, human, other kind, doesn't matter. It will work. And when they see that it works, then they really believe that we can make it. Like last year we had the Howard Singer Flower Tour. There was no building. We had 2 tents and 1 supporting building for the kitchen and the Mogyoktang, Semyongjang, etc. But we didn't have, except for a little Imshi Poptang, we didn't have anything, just a big foundation plaza. Now on that plaza you can see the first traditional building, which we will open next year. We could stage that ceremony. We could host people in the most quality manner. So now they believe that next year when we have the Kewanshik, for the new Chontong Sonpan, the traditional Zen room, we can do it again. We could do it last year, we can do it next year. It's the same thing. And once you have proven that, and you're living out there, your life has become that. There's nothing to doubt. And again, like I said earlier, if you don't doubt yourself, soon or later the universe, people, stops doubting you. Okay? Good. Last question.
If there's anybody, may I have a question? May I have a question which may not relate with your Dharma talk? Please, okay?
We will see. We will see. You asked the question.
Since I come to Korea, I've been reading a funeral a lot. What is the best way of
Jijang Bosal. Jijang Bosal is the best prayer for them because Jijang Bosal, or in Sanskrit, the Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, is the embodiment of the energy which guides the deceased from death to the new life. Also, if you look at the statue, Jijang Bosal has a big rod, huge rod with 6 rings. The 6 rings represent the 6 realms of existence. Okay? Like I said, the central two, in the center, human and animal, we can see that. The demigod and God, you know, we cannot see that. And also, demon and hell, we also cannot see that. But our direction within the 6 realms, and also above the 6 realms, is hugely important. And if we have Jijang Bosal energy towards the deceased's mind, especially if you have close karma with the person, and that kind of energy can bring the clarity which is necessary to go from the death of the person to the new birth of that person. Why? As long as you are in this body, your body stabilizes your mind and mostly binds it to one place, to this place, right now. We are attached to our senses, we are attached to this body, so this body actually binds us to the place where it is. When you dream, of course, it's different. But when we die and we leave this body behind, it's really strenuous. It's not fun. I mean, most people are in a swoon when they leave, you know, this body behind. And when you think without the body, then that happens right away. Right away. So you think that you want to be in Ulsan, and your mind immediately goes to Ulsan and sees the sea coast and the city and everything. Now, if you have lots of karma, you run around too much. You know, that's not necessary. It's losing energy, losing time, etc., etc., etc. So, Jijang Bosal is the shortcut. Jijang Bosal is the straight way. And that's why we chant Jijang Bosal. It's not some kind of grieving ceremony. People are sad. But Jijang Bosal is not about grief. Jijang Bosal is about direction. And it really gives the direction to the mind from one body, it's gone, to the next, which is born. You know? And this is truly important. So keep Jijang Bosal, that will help the deceased for 3 years. After that, Kwansan Bosal. So another last question. Wait, let's have a countdown. It's yours.
Thank you, teacher.
Welcome, student.
Okay, I was born as Catholic and I've been practicing for 40 years. And then about 10 years ago I left and I started knowing Buddhism about 5 months. And then kind of like, and my son and daughter also was born Catholic, but they're not Catholic anymore. It is okay to introduce them Buddhism, because I made a mistake when I had them taken to the Catholic and tried to raise them with give them very like narrow-minded about religion, about life. So I'm kind of worrying that even though I like Buddhism, it is okay for them to have Buddhism.
Of course it's okay, but you have to choose the time and the place very carefully. You know,
Yeah.
if you choose it in the wrong way, then your children will bring up a lot of resistance and they will tell you, Daddy, you know what you taught us 10, 5, 4 years ago? Now what's wrong with you? You know? So they have to become mature enough to actually see what this is about and not be kind of repelled by the difference in form or the difference in speech or the difference in mentality. So, of course it's okay. And you should do that so that the family wouldn't be kind of ripped apart. And if your children are old enough to understand, when you talk about religious subjects, you can kind of give some insight to them of your own transition, what it means to you now to practice Buddhism. And if you're skillful, you can bridge the old into the new. So your kids don't have to feel kind of cut in half. One half is the old one and the other half is the new one because Daddy has made a change.
But they are completely out of Catholic now. But they are about 21 and 19.
21 and 19?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you just throw them in. It's no big deal. When you said children, these are adults. I mean, when you say children, it's definitely under 18, and legally under 18. And if you look at the kind of maturing process of the young generation, who is a kid above 16? No one. I mean, these are adults. I mean, for Christ's sake, what's the dilemma here?
They don't know anything about it. I'm not really capable to introduce them. So what's the best way to show them the taste of?
Do you guys share some time and space together? Do you live in the same household? So, when you go to a place like this, or when you go to practice, you can invite them to do that. It's okay. And the best is actually, before you do make the formal invitation, if they have a problem, you know, sometimes their hearts can just break because that day they didn't receive the SMS, you know. So when it happens, then you can say, okay, I can help you solve this problem, and then you teach them a little meditation, you teach them a little reflection. They don't have to know it's Buddhism, it's Daddy's speech or Daddy's practice. And then they will be surprised because reflection works, detachment works, perception works. It always did and it always will. So, when you help them digest their karma and you take them to the next level mentally, instinctively they will trust you. Because you did something good for them. You did something very beneficial to them. And you didn't enforce the form, so now you went to church, now you go to temple. It's not the point. The point is how much the Dharma can help. And if you prove at first that the Dharma is helpful, that they can fix their little consciousness, with the help of practicing, they will trust you and they say, oh Daddy, I want more of this. And you didn't sell them something sweet. You didn't fool them. You didn't promise anything. You didn't deceive them in any possible way. You put something clear and true and functional on the table right before them. They tasted it, it worked, so they will trust you. And anything which happens after that is based on this trust, on this integrity, on this clarity, on this kind of direction. And that's why those people who enter the Dharma and practice the Dharma, it's very rare that they would leave. Not because somebody holds them back. If somebody holds them back, they would go right away. People love freedom. But if people are just introduced to the form or to the externals, and like and dislike mind is still strong. If they don't see the function of the Dharma in their lives, that it actually makes them capable of seeing the cause of suffering, the end of suffering, and go through the path to end the suffering, then what's the use? What's the use? But once they see the use of the Dharma, they will trust the person who took them to the Dharma, and then you have much chance, a lot of chance to actually take them one step further. But they are 19 and 21, they are looking for their place in life, so don't want to determine that. Look for the time, look for the opening when they are receptive, and you can actually help with your experience in Buddhism. So I hope all of us will be using our karma well, find the appropriate and natural time and place to help people with our practice, with our mind, and that from time to time we can come together again, any place on this earth, and share the Dharma again, practice, and make one more step to attain enlightenment and save all beings from suffering. Thank you for your attention.